Hello everybody, it's me the Boss Hog, and this is my stock portfolio as of the weekend in the 22nd of August. Specifically looking over the last couple of weeks, which have been pretty wild, and I've been buying and selling lots of things. So let's have a look at that. Alright, so honestly, a weird couple of weeks, and this is 2 weeks rather than just the 1 week because life continues to get in the way. But broadly speaking, I was actually okay the last couple of weeks, even though across that 2 week period, basically down 1,000. It was a tricky period for the markets, so like I said, broadly speaking, I'm okay with that. It was a really active time for me. You can see there in the table on the left, I bought 17.5 grams worth of stock, sold 15,500. The delta is basically the additional capital added and dividends. And yeah, I continue to add £160 a day between two different portfolios, ISAs to be exact, my wife's ISA and my own. And yeah, I was trying to sort of take advantage of some of the slides in the stock market. Pretty solid couple of weeks for dividends, really. Notably EPD. This is my first non-special dividend that's 3 figures, so that was awesome. A National Grid, which actually, like some of the UK shares, they take a little while between going ex-dividend and actually being paid. I'd forgotten completely about National Grid, so that was a nice surprise because that was declared like 2 months ago, so it completely slipped my mind. So getting 60 quid there was definitely a bit of a bonus, as well as some much smaller ones there from Apple and TGP, sorry. So yeah, that was pretty cool, and broadly speaking, I'm actually okay with the last couple of weeks, but let's have a look at the buying and selling, because that's where I think it gets a bit more spicy and maybe controversial as well. So let's get to it. Alright, so in terms of shares I bought, the yellow here are kind of the theme for this week's video, which is hunting and gathering, and the main one here is Hun, so Huntsman Corporation. This is a chemical company, kind of mid-cap I suppose. It's now become my biggest holding by a fair margin. I just think it's crazy undervalued, so I decided to really average down quite hard. You can see here I moved a lot of money into it. The most notable sale we'll get to in a moment is quite maybe eyebrow raising to free up some money for this. But yeah, I was able to find a fairly large sum of money and average down quite aggressively into Huntsman Corporation. So now I have about 700 shares in them, so more than almost doubled my holding, so that was awesome. Evraz I think is much better than Rio Tinto, honestly. I'm going to do a video on that fact. And for me, it's my main iron ore play. Anything for me under 575 was a bit of a bargain, so here I averaged apparently at 564. I'm quite happy with that. At the moment I'm sitting on about a 4% loss, not including dividend. Again, I'm perfectly fine. I'm quite bullish, maybe a bit contrarian about recovery stocks like mining, financials, etc. So for me, that the wobble, especially in UK mining stocks or UK listed mining stocks, was just a buying opportunity. To echo that as well was Antofagasta. I had a 1450 buy target. I have actually owned this company before and swung traded it for a few percent. Nothing exceptional, just like high single digits. So again, buying here at 1382. I timed this actually quite well. I was quite pleased. I made a fairly big move on Friday morning. By the end of that day, it was already up a couple of percent, so that felt good. I much prefer having like dedicated specialist miners. So here we've got iron ore and copper, rather than generalists. For me, it's easier to understand, and I prefer the simplicity of the business as well. Then we've got Centamin next. This is quite an interesting one. Centamin I have also owned before, and again swung trade for about 10% profit. It's higher risk, to be honest, for a gold play because it's mainly at the moment just a single mine in Egypt, but it's a really high quality mine and they are starting to expand. They have a really great AISC, which is basically the cost of extracting the gold. And it's about 20% of my gold hedge, which is about 1% of my portfolio, so I'm just absolutely fine with that. And then my more significant hedge is polymetal. This is about 4% of my portfolio. And again, for me, anything under 1500 here was a buying opportunity, even 1550, I would say. This has got a solid yield. Both of these companies are like 7% yields. And the fact that they are my inflation and volatility hedges is also a nice thing. So yeah, I was more than happy this week buying lots of mining companies because to me they just seem like buying opportunities. That was awesome. If we move on to the orange now, I decided to. These are not sticking with the theme for this week, honestly, but they're notable. So Phoenix is probably an insurer that many people wouldn't have heard of. I have three UK insurers: Phoenix, Legal & General, and Aviva. Most people have heard of the last two, especially the UK based. Phoenix, though, is a bit more of a specialist insurer. They kind of specialise in buying closed life funds, typically from other insurers. But there's a good little business there, to be honest with you. It throws off cash. And again, this is sort of a very good yielding company. I got in before XDivvy, but I thought it was cheap. It did, of course, get impacted with the wider slide in the market, but to me, this was a great entry point, and it's now a fairly large holding, kind of about 3%. So I think between my three UK insurers, they make up about 10% of my portfolio. But I think there's like some modest capital growth in all of them. Nothing huge, like 10% tops, but they all yield like high single digits. And I'm hoping with Aviva, especially, there'll be a special in the future. Next up, we've got Amazon. I've never been quite as bullish as other people on Amazon, but I'm more than happy to buy it at 32x. My buy price at the moment, I think I average about 32.60, something like that. I'm about flat. I still think it's a fine company, and obviously it wasn't quite as stellar in its results as some of the other tech companies, but for me it was a good chance to buy some shares there, so that was awesome. And last but not least here, Disney. I decided to relent on Disney. Like, it's a company I think that everyone admires from an investment perspective, but it is an expensive share. I think my dollar price was something like 170 odd. And I read an article that sort of convinced me maybe there was a great way of Disney scaling, and it was looking at sort of Netflix. When they stream a successful series, they don't really have any way of monetizing it. So like the Queen's Gambit had chess books selling at 700% above norm. All of that sale went to Amazon, right, or whoever else people are buying chess books from. Whereas with Disney, if they have Mandalorian, well, all of a sudden they can sell Baby Yoda dolls and add a theme park ride and whatever it was. So I just decided that maybe Disney is never going to be cheap, and I was going to start with a very small holding, just from some kind of almost what was left over from some of my trading. So I thought that was notable because beforehand I've kind of like said, I would love Disney to be like 150, even lower ideally, but I don't see it getting there, and I don't think it's ever going to be a terrible stock. So I decided to open a position. So I thought I should call that out, considering I've kind of been a bit like, it's expensive, and I do, by the way, still think it's expensive, but it's also a quality stock, and I was looking for some safe blue chips in the future. And also, their latest quarterly results were solid as well, especially considering they're still kind of reopening a few things. So that's what I've been buying. If anyone else wants to ask me anything else that I haven't spoken about, then feel free in the comments. Otherwise, let's have a look at what I've sold. Okay, so let's move on to shares I've sold. This is a bit more controversial. I'm going to talk about the stuff in yellow, but I have grouped them slightly differently. So I'll start with the three here. So this is Merck, Fidelity, and Bank of Nova Scotia. These are all fine companies. I think I've made between 10 and 15% on all of them, maybe BNS just under 10. But really, I decided to sell them because I was in the process of freeing up some money, but also just because I prefer other companies in their respective sectors. So for Merck, I prefer BMY. And for the other two, I prefer Huntington Bancshares, which is still a very large holding for me as well, top 5, I think. So I just wanted to simplify my holdings in that, as well as freeing up some money. So I don't really imagine owning those in the foreseeable future, but I was quite happy to own them. And then actually quite controversial here, because I would say these three companies are real quality. Most people, everyone's going to know Apple and Microsoft, right? The third one here is Games Workshop, which is the owner of the Warhammer gaming lore, etc. Really, there were some of the few stocks that were really nice and green. I was up 20% on each of them, give or take, and I just decided to sell 99% of my holdings in those three companies just to free up money and average down. It's almost certain I'm going to be buying those stocks in the future, just kind of averaging into them once more. But I just kind of thought that there were some bargains that I couldn't ignore. So I decided to free up some money. Very controversial. Maybe that's not a good thing to do, and I'll regret it. But it is what I chose to do, and we'll see if that works out for me in the medium term. So don't judge me too harshly. Redrow here. This is a UK listed construction company. I decided to sell when a competitor released some numbers. Basically, there's some tax at the moment that makes buying a house slightly less unaffordable. And the numbers I think are going to be really good as everyone rushes to buy a house before that offer ends. And I just decided to, again, free up some money, get out of Redrow, and I would consider getting back into it again, but I decided I needed the cash. And last but not least, I decided to trim some Hollywood Bowl just for a couple of % profit. I sold about 20% of my stake, and this was really just, again, because I think Hollywood Bowl at the moment is probably about 15% undervalued. I can imagine like a 270 kind of immediate target. They've got their results in about 6 weeks, I think. Whereas Huntsman, I just think is like I say, 30% undervalued. I think it's a $32 stock. So again, to me, it was a case of deciding where I wanted to put my money, and decided to trim some Hollywood Bowl and put it into Huntsman Corporation again. So that's what I've been selling. Like I say, it was a very active couple of weeks. I did finish those 2-week periods down a fair amount. For the month, I'm down, but slightly less, just very low 3 figures. We'll see how it shapes up over the next week and a bit. But yeah, that's what I've been buying, selling, and the dividends I've been getting. Any questions in the comment sections? Otherwise, I've been the Boss Hog. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy your evening, everyone. Bye for now.